and we all hope that they do too, because that helps us in the long run. But yeah, I think that's my basic background, as far as I go, and I can go into more depth of what I did at News 12 too if you want me to, or I can pass it on to Ingrid for now and come back. So.
Hey y'all. Yeah, if you guys have any questions anytime, or want to delve into anything, please feel free to put it in the chat. We'll circle back, or if it's something that we can hit in briefly in our introducing ourselves, we'll do that. And someone's always monitoring the chat. So there you go. So I'm Ingrid. I was born in Indiana, raised in North Carolina and educated there, the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. I have a slightly interesting degree, BFA in drama, concentration in technical production. So it's like a BFA at a liberal arts school. Did not take a stage management class at all while I was at school, but was able to work at a local regional house through college, through my last 2 years, which EMC points, got more experience. From there, moved around for a couple of years, I think 2.5 before finally settling in New Jersey, where I live in Weehawken. Well, there's a room in this apartment where I can see the skyline. Because of that, I've worked regionally for a little bit, done rep productions, which is a nice little beast, toured with TheaterWorks USA, Summer Stock, now trying to work mainly in the New York City metro area, which the recent string has been New Works, which I love. I primarily prefer being an ASM versus a PSM, even though sometimes those jobs are more common as PSM, because I'm also an equity stage manager. I've had my card for about 4.5 years now, which I got in Connecticut working. I was also the production manager on that same theater, at that same theater where I got my card. I've been fortunate recently where I was primarily depending on stage management. However, high school, I was working at a historical site and still use that information. I've worked at a Jimmy John's. I've done front of house in a performance space here in New York City, been an electrician, been a personal assistant, which is actually pretty flexible. And then right now, because obviously not much theater going on, I'm actually working in retail for about the past 6 weeks, which is a nice, several skills from stage management go straight into that. And it's a nice challenge, also helping out while I can. That's a little bit about me. So Lisa, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa. My background in stage management comes from high school on. I was an actor from the age of 9 and was accepted into a performing arts high school, where I was very lucky to have a teacher who believed that the more you knew, the better off you were at telling stories. If you can't tell from my accent, I do come from North Carolina, as Ingrid does, born and raised. I moved to New York almost 4 years ago to come back to professional stage management. I went to college at Catawba College in Salisbury, North Carolina. My degree is a Bachelor of Arts in Theater, General Theater, with a minor in English and a minor in Psychology. And I lack one class of having a minor in dance. I'm a little bit of an overachiever. And then I got my master's at UNC Greensboro, where Ingrid also went to school, in theater education. I spent over 20 years being a high school theater teacher just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, until I took early retirement. My son went to college and said, "Mom, go back to doing what you love." And I moved to New York and came back to stage management, and I am an equity stage manager. I, like Ingrid, love New Work. It's one of my favorite things about living in the city and being involved in theater. Most of my work is here in the metro New York area. In addition to working as a high school teacher and stage management community theater, I've also worked as a costume designer I've also done a little bit of choreography work here and there. I've worked as a production manager as well. So I have a pretty varied background. Normally, if I wasn't stage managing here in the city, I would be working as an audition monitor for Equity. That's not happening right now. Or I would be working as a tour guide for an educational tour company. That's not happening right now. So I also am writing the unemployment wave at the moment, and just taking it one day at a time. So that's kind of my background, and we'll turn it over to Lizzie.
Hey all, I'm Elizabeth, or Lizzie as most of you know. Born and bred Long Island like Taylor. I grew up in Port Jeff, which is about an hour east of her, so she's got an easier LIR, which I'm always envious of, especially those 4 a.m. train rides after a tech rehearsal. I am a stage manager, production manager, writer, techie. I am not unemployed at the moment. Most of you know I'm the production coordinator for the Broadway Stage Management Symposium, which we are just 5 days out from, so get excited about that. I'm also the production manager and lighting designer for a play called Places, now called The Garden of Allah, written by Romy Nordlinger, which we've been doing for over a year, last at the Kennedy Center in DC. That'll be happening at some point once it is safe again. Writing, I just found out a full-length play I've been writing and developing for almost 5 years called Later Alligator is going to be featured in the New York City Pride Play Festival, which will be all online this year. So look out for that in June. We have rehearsal for that in the morning. So as soon as I'm off this call, I'm going to go edit a 20-minute scene into 3 minutes. So that'll be a fun challenge. Yeah, it's all good. A little about my background. I didn't start out in theater professionally. Being an athlete my whole life, I actually originally went to college for sport management. And after a year of studying that and doing a professional internship, I didn't love the business as much anymore. Learned what stage management was through my parents, actually. Growing up in New York, we went to shows all the time. After revival, my mom mentioned what it was to me. I Googled it, changed my major school, and did get my Bachelor of Fine Arts in stage management. Did some professional internships, one at the Williamstown Theater Festival up in the Berkshires in Massachusetts, primarily production management. After I graduated from the University of Rhode Island, I came back home, started working professionally in stage management, off-Broadway, sound design. I did some lighting design. Was the production stage manager for a talk show at the Public Theater for 2 years called The Employee of the Month Show, Katie Lazarus. I've done a number of jobs in theater. I've also still do sports. I coach golf freelance occasionally. If it is happening, I will be on the marketing team for the US Tennis Open in August. We're going to find out probably in the next couple weeks if that is still happening or not. As it's an international tournament, they're still unsure with everything changing day to day. That's pretty much my background in a nutshell. Something is always picking up with me every day, which is great, even in this new world, but always happy to be working and learning and creating art in any way, shape, and form I can. And with these fabulous people. Taylor.
Yeah, it's funny because you were saying you do a lot of little different things throughout. I was a prop designer for a little while here and there, theaters here on Long Island. That's part of how I actually got into. I work at Ingrid and I have both worked at the Argyle Theater out here on Long Island in Babylon, and I started with them as their prop designer, and it's not what I wanted to do. So I went and said, hey, you guys, I'm a stage manager. I'm an equity stage manager. So, and I also prefer ASMing actually. So here's my resume. And I wound up, Ingrid and I both we started together at that theater doing Peter and the Starcatcher. And that was the first show that I actually did not do props for there. They were in their first season. I think it was their third show. But what happened was the PSM, she had to leave towards the end of the run. And so Ingrid wound up bumping up to, she was the ASM. She wound up bumping up to PSM, and they knew I was the stage manager. And so I bumped up to the ASM position. I was a crew member for most of the run, and then bumped up the last couple of weeks. And then we did Spring Awakening was the next show there. And then the most recent show we did was Miracle on 34th Street. So I don't know, do you guys have any questions or anything for us that you want answered or anything that you want to add into?
Is there a particular thing about the freelance lifestyle that seems interesting to you guys, or that you want to kind of discuss in with how we use our skills as stage managers to either supplement work or find work or things of that nature?
I can say that I went from, like I said, I mentioned I worked at News 12 Long Island for 10 years, and that was a full-time, not 9-to-5 job, but it was a full-time job. And I actually had the Monday through Friday schedule. I had weekends off, you guys, and I got rid of it. I wound up doing, it was, you know, benefits, pension, 401k. I wasn't making bank there because it's a local news station, but I wound up, it was starting to become a miserable thing for me, and I liked live entertainment more. And you know, live theater is very different from live news. It's not the same thing. So going from a full-time job to freelance is a terrifying thing. But it's a big decision to make, and I'm glad I made it. Yeah, I like it. I'm much happier now, even though nothing's going at the moment. It will eventually.
I'll have on that too. I mean, I spent over 20 years teaching, so I had a guaranteed paycheck every month. I had worked it out so that I had paychecks in the summer. So going from having that guarantee to being freelance and not knowing what the next job is and how much that money is going to be was a big adjustment. And I think it takes a unique personality to do that. You have to have some faith in yourself. You have to have faith in the network that you've built to be able to continue to keep that ball rolling. And you also have to be willing to do other things. In terms of taking those stage management skills, when I went to apply for the job that I have as a tour guide, I walked into my interview, and it just so happens my boss is a former stage manager. And the first thing he said to me was, I love the fact that you're a stage manager. I love the fact that you're a teacher. Those are two skill sets that will be perfect to escort young people around the city of New York who've never been here. And I know that if there's an emergency situation that comes up, you can handle it because that's what you do every day. So those skill sets as a stage manager certainly apply to many different aspects of many different careers.
I always have a hard time using the keystroke for mute and unmute, so I'm sure everyone knows that pain. Yeah. So general question, and you guys feel free to respond either in chat or all that. Is there something that is a positive about freelance, or that you enjoy the most about being freelance and those skills developed? If anyone wants to jump in.
I think what I love about freelance is that I'm not necessarily tied down to a specific contract all the time. I mean, my main gig is the symposium. I've been the Matt's production coordinator since the inception. We've been building this company for almost 7 years now. So it is nice to have that steady, though freelance gig. We don't have like set hours per se. I mean, we do work, especially these last couple weeks, around the clock, but we don't work on the symposium every day of the year. You know, a few times a week we'll sorry, I think my dog was knocking at the door. We'll be in touch, and we're always texting, but I have the opportunity to do, you know, a play or a musical, or go down to DC and do something, or corporate events, which is nice. Sometimes corporate events, they pay incredibly well, and sometimes they're only a week long, or sometimes they're just one day long, and you get this amazing paycheck and then like the best tax return in the world, usually. But freelance is great in the sense that through the symposium and through Matt, I mentioned I ran a talk show for 2.5 years. I had never done a live talk show or live podcast with cameras and that kind of jazz, all that kind of jazz. And he recommended me, and I kind of got thrown in. They brought me in as they said PA, which they were just seeing if I could take over as PSM. And I found out after I PA'd for one night, the next morning, I was going to replace the PSM that was leaving. And I had 3 weeks after one show just to learn the whole thing. And my first show was with a UN ambassador and a Secret Service team all thrown at me. And I was quite young. I was 24 years old when I did that, but you just make it happen, and you study and you do everything you can, and you're going to learn things in the moment. And it's great because you're learning all different types of personalities, all different, a totally different skill set, a totally different part of the entertainment industry. But it was also one of my favorite things I've ever done. I've worked with some of my heroes on that show. I learned how to work with camera crews and video a little better, different kinds of designers. I learned how to work with people that work at a bar, because it was at Joe's Pub, and you're also dealing with the wait staff, and you're dealing with their managers and how everything runs at that. And because there's usually a show, you're either the 9:30 show or the 7 o'clock show, you are rushed through sound check, and you are rushed getting off the stage. It's actually even harder than Fringe. They give you less time than Fringe, if anyone's done Fringe. But to have that experience and then bring it on to all the other different things I do, even in writing or in lighting design, or I started real estate, that all those skill sets add up to helping in any different kind of job in freelance life.
I know with me, like, I respond so much to you. I love the fact of knowing there's an end date on something. Kind of makes it easier to get through, because I know we've all had those shows where maybe not the experience you're going to love for the rest of your life, or you're going to have a great interview story from it, but it's nice to be able to count down the days. So that's kind of
Show you're talking
good in general. And there's also, I guess, the psychology of knowing there is being able to savor something before it does wear off and become old. I mean, some of my favorite experiences on the road were when we had to put on what's called an emergency understudy. So you do a show that was busy enough for 5 people, and now you're doing it with 4 people. And while that is one of the most stressful things you can do, especially when traveling and doing it within 24 hours notice, it was also quite exciting for the performers, and mainly for the performers, but a little bit for myself, because it broke up the time. And I know that particular tour, we referred to the beginning, the tour in 2 phases: what happened before that and then after that. So having a short time being able to sample so many different things is quite fun. I honestly do not know how my parents do it, being in a normal, consistent lifestyle. So yeah, that's kind of outweighs all the where is the next job coming from a little bit. Its own flip side.
Yeah, it's kind of the same for me too. I like, it's what they call the gypsy lifestyle sometimes. Sorry if that's not PC, but it's the start and the stop, and the different places that you're going to, or the different companies that you're working with, and the different people that you're gonna see. And sometimes it's fun to see people come back too. As you made friends with somebody on one show, you kind of lose touch, and then they're back again for another one, and you get to see them again, which is nice. I have I have one tour credit and we had 2 stops. One was in Connecticut, the other was in Atlantic City, and it was called the Crack Free Handyman, and that is how I got my equity card. And I was the PSM, but also a lot of other things for that show. And that was one of the shows where it was not a great show by any stretch of the imagination, but we had a lot of fun doing it. So that's what I like also. It's again, meeting the different groups of people that you're going to wind up meeting. And I also learned certain people that I won't work with again on that show. There's a certain person that I'm good. But then also, you know, my skill set, like I said, I worked for 10 years at a news station, and I did robotic cameras there. And I was a master control operator, and I was a director for a little while there too. And it was my camera person credit that actually got me the ASM position for the Brits Off Broadway Festival last summer. It's Sean, that's where you and I met. Because they needed, the ASM was on stage at the top of the show. It was called Caroline's Kitchen. And the ASM played a camera person. And that's what I did for 10 years. So they're like, oh, it's great, you know how to work a camera. It was not a practical camera, but I could fake it at least. I knew what I was doing. I knew how to move around and get things that they wanted me to do. So it's little things like that. Even, you form a skill set somewhere and you use it elsewhere. That's pretty cool. It's fun to bring things back around that way too, I think.
Is there anything like maybe in education or training, however you want to view that you think best helps with the freelance lifestyle? Whether it's from the theater side or liberal arts side, because I don't think any of us really went to a strict conservatory.
I didn't go to a conservatory. I did go to a BFA program, but I don't think I actually use anything from my BFA education in my professional life. Maybe blocking, like how to take blocking, but that's kind of it. I think everyone knows this who's watching and works in industry. You learn on your feet. You just have to go with it and learn, and you're learning. I learned how to call a show backstage at Williamstown. I learned how to tape out a floor at Primary Stages. I learned how to be on book at the Public. It's just while you're in the room and seeing other people do it and getting a feel and a confidence in your skills.
I was the same way. Nobody taught me stage management. It was, I auditioned for things in college and wasn't getting on stage, but I still wanted to be part of the show. So the director said, here's last year's prompt book, learn things from that and make this show happen. So I did. But as far as classes go, other than, some schools, more schools now I think do have a stage management program. By all means, take those classes, but also, take a lighting class, take a scenic design class, take costume design. Like I said, I think it helps to learn a little bit about a lot of things. You don't have to be an expert at all of them by any stretch of the imagination. It's just enough to hold a conversation. And I think taking a psychology class or sociology class would definitely be helpful, because you are dealing with personalities in that room that you never may have thought you would deal with. And sometimes it's sometimes it's easy. Dare I say, I know that's a 4-letter word, but it happens sometimes where everyone gets along and things just work. And it has happened exactly one time for me, but it has happened. And then there's times where you have things to deal with that you don't necessarily want to deal with, but you have to, where not everybody gets along, and you have to figure out how to do that. And I think like taking some class that shows you personality types or descriptions of them is helpful.
Also, taking a language class is important. I took French throughout school, like from middle school all the way through college. So I'm pretty conversational. And when I did talent management for Cartier, a lot of their staff wasn't fluent in English. So I was able to converse with their French speaking staff, and that was helpful because some other people on my team didn't speak it. So, don't, it doesn't be French obviously, but take a foreign language, do Duolingo, take as many different classes as you can when you're in school, because you never know when it's going to be helpful, not just in theater, just in life generally, or whatever freelance job you might be doing.
And that being said, for those of us who
I agree with that too.
go for it, Lisa.
Go ahead, Taylor. No, I'm just gonna piggyback on everyone else. My degree is a general degree in theater, and so I was encouraged, of course, to take many different classes. With my minor in psychology, my mother also had minored in psychology, so she was very familiar with, as Taylor referred to, the personality types. So I think that is immensely helpful. It certainly helped me as a teacher, and I continue to use those skills as a stage manager. But also it helps you in terms of understanding how the flow of a rehearsal works. I took dance in college for fun and for something to keep me physically active. But when I walk into a musical rehearsal and the choreographer says, yeah, I know it's time for break, but I really want to finish this and I just need 5 more minutes. And I know, having been a dancer, that it's going to take him 15 or 20 more minutes, then I can say, I know it's going to take me longer than 5. Let's go ahead and take this break and we'll come back to it. Or I can legitimately know, okay, yeah, that's probably only going to take 5 minutes. And is it okay if we all hold up for 5 more minutes and finish this, take a break? So the more you know and understand about theater, and the more you understand how that process works, it certainly helps in terms of being able to keep a rehearsal, no matter what type of rehearsal it is, running smoothly.
And I think for those of us who are done with school and maybe didn't take the classes for it, it's certainly something you can learn. It's just by experience. We're never all going to have the answers. We're not supposed to. That's what learning is. And I think I've said a couple of times in different interviews, if you're not learning something, you're doing it wrong. And by that, I mean, it can be the most minute thing in the world. You might not recognize it at the time, but it's something that you can recall later on and bring it back. It only adds to what your skill set is. It's not going to hurt you. Again, I said, we don't know everything. We don't. So I think you can learn how to deal with people, and you can learn how to talk to people, and it's essentially reading the room, or reading the person who at least is in front of you and what they're feeling that day. They might not be feeling so great and they need to talk to you about something, and that's fine. And you have to somehow give back what it is that will help them get through their day, get through their rehearsal or their performance, and put on the show. Because that's what our end game is. We've all got to put on the best show that we all can. We're just doing different things within that theater to do that. And no, I don't believe that anyone is more or less important than anybody else in that room. Because again, we're all doing the same show. We're just doing different things to get it there. And I know if someone's having an off day, I want to try to help them. Because I know if I'm having an off day, I would like help too. It's nice to have someone have your back. And you can learn how to do that. It just takes time. It just takes experience, and you can't necessarily get that right off the bat, I think. It helps to get the jobs, to, again, be able to read a room and be able to obviously do the job that you are hired for, but be somebody that people like working with. So even if you don't know exactly how to create a prop track or a crew track or something like that, we can teach you how to do that. I can't teach you how to be nice or how to be likable. So I think that for me is very important too. It helps to get along. It really helps to get along with the people that you're working with. And that's why the 4 of us here are here doing this together too, and doing other things that we do together as well, I think.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you piss me off once, I'm not going to remember. I mean, I will remember. And you're not, if someone asks me for a recommendation about that person, I'm not, okay, Matt's turn. I got to turn your mute off on text messages. Sorry about that if you heard the beep. What was I saying? That, if someone upsets me once or does something unprofessionally once like that, I will remember. And if someone asks me for a recommendation, I'll be honest and say, I can't recommend that person. So you have to make an effort. I mean, yeah, there's not gonna be perfect chemistry on every single play you work on, every single event. But if you want that paycheck and you like the company enough, you might not have to work with that person again. The company might hire you, they might not hire them back because maybe they noticed something unprofessional in their work ethic, and you just have to make an effort if you want to work with certain people. I am someone that I'm not afraid to go up to someone at an event or a play or wherever I am and say, can I have your business card? Can you write it down on a piece of paper? And I see people not do that and they go, well, she got the job and I didn't. You didn't make an effort to talk to that person. You were busy staring at your Instagram. You were busy, paying attention to something that wasn't necessary in that moment. So making an effort is a big deal, especially in this city. This is not an easy town to work in. It is not an easy town to do freelance in. And if you don't hustle, you're not going to be successful. So, I mean, if you come to New York to make your dream of working in theater and entertainment, make an effort. So.
Amir, strikes me that,
and that's a skill too, is learning to network. Because I had to learn that skill. That's something that I'm not comfortable with, and not something that I've had to do as a teacher. So learning to network, and as Lizzie says, being willing to go up and talk to somebody and say, hey, I would be interested in working with you and getting to know them, is a skill that it has to be developed as well.
You gotta, I was very shy in college, and once I started, doing theater a little more in college, doing professional internships at Williamstown, working in New York, I realized I had to shed that shy shell, or I just wasn't gonna work with the people I wanted to and on the projects I wanted to. And it's not easy, but the more you practice, the more you get more comfortable saying to someone, hey, I'd like to grab a cup of coffee sometime, or just meet up, or have a phone call or a Zoom call or whatever. It will get easier. It's just a muscle you gotta keep working. That's really all it is.
do you guys find that you use like the psychology aspect of it, not just on the show, but like for yourself and building a career and creating a room kind of thing?
Oh yeah.
Because I know that's probably one of the hardest things with freelance is not only getting the job, but building a career. Because you can get one job, but turning it around, it seems kind of is what prevents some people from continuing, and among other things, and we talk about people's careers probably more than we do their shows, I think, or like their stream shows. Do you think psychology plays a part in that, personally?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool.
I mean,
yeah, I do think the psychology plays into that, and I think that you do have to recognize when you're freelancing that a lot of it has to do with your approach. And if you have a show that maybe is not perfect, you find something that is good that you loved about it. Find somebody that you worked with, that you worked well with, that you may want to work with again, and keep that connection going. And it's not only that, but look at how did you contribute to that process? What do you feel that you did well in that process? But what did you learn from that process? And life is a learning process. I came from that philosophy. My grandmother went back to high school and got her GED at 60, when all four of her children had gone off to college. So I was raised in a home where you can learn something new every day. and that you constantly do that. And so one of the things that I think that the psychology does help with is looking at yourself. What did you contribute to this process? What did you do well? How could you improve? Because then you're going to go on to another process. And that helps you, if you understand, the more you understand yourself and how you contribute and how you can also detract from the process, it helps with the next job.
I mean, I'm willing to bet in any interview that any one of us have done, we've gotten the question, what makes you the best candidate? Or what you know, what are your likes and dislikes about?
Favorite quiz?
Yeah.
It's not an easy question to answer either, but it changes all the time.
Yeah, well, because we change all the time too. And
Yeah.
that's why I think, again, as stage managers, we tend to be the ones that people come to when they're having a problem, and that's what they're supposed to do. That is part of what we're there for. But also, we need to be able to go to somebody sometimes, or at least be able to reflect in yourself. All right, here's how I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to be okay. We're not, this is not curing cancer here. It's not brain surgery. We're putting on a play. And I only have to deal with this situation in this moment right now. And then we get the show going, and then we keep going. And that's just part of, I think, most of our makeup is we get it done. And then we figure out what happened later. Kind of, sometimes, you got to do what you have to get the show going. And then you maybe go like treat yourself to something afterwards. You go out after the show and that's part of the psychology of it, is leaving it at the theater and letting it go. I'm not Elsa, I swear. But it's part of it. You have to leave it.
You also have to leave sometimes your personal stuff at the door too. I mean, it's hard. Everyone's going to have their off days, and sometimes you're going to have an amazing day. I was doing a festival at the old Lee Theater when it was I preferred it when it was on White Street in Tribeca several years ago. Great experience. A day before tech, I was in the SM office, and my mom called me and said, I know you have a couple days off from the festival. I was living in Harlem at the time. I think you should come home. The dog is really sick. And I had just done my 10 out of 12, just finishing stuff up in the SM office, and had to go to a production meeting after that and, do the show the next day before I go home. And, I let out a big cry behind the door, just kind of drank some water, patted some water on my face, and did the production meeting, went home, did my rest of my tech in the show the next day, went home for a couple days, said goodbye to my dog. And, when I got back, because there was actually a barking dog scene in one of the plays we were doing, I think I had like a tear run down my face, and the actors would sometimes be in the booth just because of the layout of the theater. And we would all go to a bar after, because the show ended late, and there was a great bar next door, and they're like, are you okay? You just kind of seemed like you did everything great. It was just, you seemed sad. And I was like, I went home for a couple of days and my dog passed away, and it was rough. And your cast and your crew and everyone will surround you and take care of you. And I think it was also good that they saw that I was human and not just their stage manager in that moment. So, life happens, and obviously that was, incredibly sad. But I am glad at the same time I got to go home and say goodbye to my dog and see my family, and then got to finish the festival, just with some more closure, and knowing that I did nothing wrong if they saw me shed a tear, or, if they saw me sad for a moment because of what was happening in the scene. And it's normal, and it's okay. And there's nothing to feel embarrassed about, and there's nothing to feel scared about. No one's going to fire you for it if someone sees you feeling slightly emotional that day. Even on the symposium a couple years ago, we saw Indecent, Paul Vogel's Indecent, and I was going through something with a woman at the time, and I kind of forgot what the play was about, and I said to a few of them, and Matt, you might see me cry because this is been going on in my life, and they did, and they got me through it, and it wasn't a bad thing. It was just in the moment, and art makes you feel, and your emotions can come up in the moment. And I think, Taylor saw me like sobbing on the street, but she was there for me, and they were all hugging and rallying. And
You told me ahead of time, and I was like, okay, that's, yeah.
I think it was just because like a couple of the others had never like seen me that emotional before, and it, I was like, oh, but they all rallied, and they were kind and comforting, and that's all you can ask of your team and your friends and your colleagues.
Art isn't easy, as sometimes said.
Well, Pixar got that right with Inside Out. Sadness is useful for that.
Yeah. And I think,
I've never seen it.
like you said, just being human, because that's what we are. It's okay to let them, your cast, your crew, see that, because they still trust you, and they'll probably even trust you more, because they've seen something that they can connect to also, because they are all about, your cast in particular are all about connections and things like that, particularly emotional ones. I like to, again, it's reading the room first, but when it's allowed, I do like to joke around with my cast. I like to become friendly with them because, and I know sometimes that's taboo for people, and that's okay, that's fine. But they know, and I've heard, I've had actors tell me before, we know that they knew when I meant business because I was joking around with them. I was just being a person with them. And when I was strict about it, they knew it was something to be serious about, that they needed to stop doing what they were doing, whatever it may have been. And whether it be just shut up backstage or stop a certain thing that was going on. They knew I meant it, and they took me seriously, and they were okay with it. They're like, all right, great. That's what we are. So, it's okay to be human.
We are human beings, not human doings. Yes.
We're not a machine.
And it's funny when you talk about psychology, sometimes we do things we don't even realize it. When I was teaching, it was several years into my teaching career, one of my students said to me, "Oh, you put your hair up. That means it's time to get serious. We're about to get to tech week and do the show." And in my mind, I was like, well, of course, because I'm going to have stuff, all this kind of stuff going on. I want my hair out of my way. And never thought that was a visual cue to my students. Oh, the hair's gone up. It's time to get serious. So sometimes we do things like that, and it is a signal to our actors because they've learned us well enough at that point that they do kind of clue in. It's not just necessarily verbal, but it can also be physically what we do in the room. That subtext is there, that the actors go, oh, okay, we've gone to the next step, or something has happened, or this is the way we're looking at it.
Yeah, of course. I had a thought about it. I was about to talk about food and psychology. Huge thing with that and connecting with people. Probably not very important right now.
Can be. It's how I've used it as a pick-me-up before.
Or maybe I'm just thinking about dinner already.
That's true. I already ate. But actually, well, since you bring it up, there was a show that Ingrid and I did when we were in tech, and things were tough. And it was spring week, so it's already a heavy show to begin with. And things were just a little bit tough, and the actors we all needed just something to kind of be happy about during tech. And I just sent out a little email saying, you guys are doing great. I really appreciate what you're doing. And it's really fun to watch you guys do what you do, because, acting is not my job, it's their job, but I get to watch them do it. And that's pretty neat, I think. And I think I brought in candy or something, and the next day like chocolate covered pretzels, and everybody was like, this is great. This is nice. So that just helps, boost morale a little bit.
I
Yay,
bake for my
sugar.
shows. I bake for events and shows and teams I work with. And also that's also a skill to work on too. Like if you aren't a competent baker or cooking, get better at it. Because if you can make some banana bread for your crew and your team, they're gonna love you. Especially if it tastes really good and keep asking for it. So
Free.
it's free food. I mean, free dessert, free breakfast. Maybe have a little banana bread for breakfast or something if they eat that stuff. But
I think since we're coming up to the 6:30 mark, I think we'd like to open it up to you guys. If you have anything to say, let us know. You can feel free to turn your cameras back on too if you would like to, and unmute yourselves as well, because we've been talking for a while. So
I'm just used to saying numbers, so this is different.
yeah, I know. I know. It's funny, I was talking about earlier letters and numbers that I have issues with, where I get them inverted. And the last time I was calling a show, I was like, if you can just leave out the number 48 and 84, that would be great.
also,
those please.
On that note, if you be confident about your cues if you're calling. Actually, on the show Places I Do, they don't write V for the video cue, they write P for projection. And so they'll write like PG is like the cue. And so it got to PP, and I was like, can you just like skip over P and go to but feel confident, because I actually know people that don't like calling numbers or calling letters, and no one will ever be mad if you're like, if you say in advance of tech, don't do it like, right before cue to cue. Can I call this my cues this way? So,
and again, be nice about it.
Yes.
There's no reason to not be nice. It's
the
easiest thing in the world. It makes it so much more pleasant in the space that you're all working in and that you're all sharing. And God forbid you got to share a public bathroom anyway. You're all in a very small spot, you guys. Like, just be nice. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. Because somebody can be having a really bad day and you're just like, hey, how's it going? It's really great to see you. That's nice.
With cues, I often, and Taylor, you have heard this, I'm not dyslexic in any means, but for some reason, a different number will come out of my mouth. And then I'll still say Geo, and luckily people go along with me.
Yeah.
Because my brain just goes.
Yeah.
In a good way, but goes.
Yeah, I mean, it is, especially when you're calling sequences that are absurdly long.
Oh, none of them have been absurdly long yet.
Yeah.
No one has any questions?
I think people are like Memorial Day.
Yeah, but it's like you can't do a barbecue.
They just like listening to us, so.
Dion said,
yeah.
Lisa Dawn, brilliant stage manager, Lisa Dawn, was wearing a t-shirt last week, said be a good person. I was talking to him about it when I did his webinar. And that is true, be a good person.
I actually just bought one of our cast members from Miracle on 34th Street has her own merchandise, and I bought some of it recently, and it says, don't make me use my stage voice. So that's I guess when I'm using my stage voice is when people know I actually mean business, and it's not time to play around just yet. We can get back to that later, but.
Ooh, question in the chat. Thanks, Dion. Would you like to explain more how you keep the line between friends and professional?
It's a balancing act.
It is. For me, it kind of just comes a bit naturally. It's just I'm able to adapt myself to the room that I'm in at the moment, and that can be with the same people overall. I know that I don't necessarily know how you learn it. sorry, what would you say?
No, I was just gonna say, it is natural in that just be careful.
Yeah.
Because I'll say it. It's not a secret. I mean, I've dated a lot of actresses in this business. I've dated a lot of directors in this business. If you're gonna do that, wait till the show is over because it could be seen as power of abuse. I'm someone that's very careful about that. I will not go out with someone until the show closes, or unless they're not working on the show anymore. Like if they were an assistant director and we've opened and they're finished for the most part. Just be careful. It's the same with friends, but just be careful.
It's
It's I'm not gonna show the way I'm treating one person in the cast is how I'm treating the cast. I'm not. It's not showing favorites. So, and I think that's important too. You may have your favorites. Let's be honest, we do.
We always do.
But you can't show that. That's one thing that you have to keep to yourself, I think.
The other thing is people might they'll notice. Like if you're being very friendly or flirtatious, people are going to notice. So just, if you're going to talk to them outside of the room and text and whatever, hang out, just be mindful. But also know that if people see that, they might report you. It might make them uncomfortable. They don't know what's happening outside of the room. So be cautious and mindful.
And where I'll draw the line in that is the what is it, being be careful but still be nice. Sorry, I was reading the chat. When it comes down to it, we've got to put on the show that the directors and the designers and choreographers and such have made. It's their show. They're the ones that made it. We're the ones who are responsible for taking care of it and making sure that that's the show that each audience sees. Yes, they have actors and stage managers, cast and crew alike want to keep it fresh, but we still got to put out what it is that the director and everybody set forth. If it's something that's going to change that, especially drastically, that's not okay.
I actually probably might have a slightly different view. I remember seeing something from Maddie DiCarlo that was said about Maddie DiCarlo by Alex Brentman that, and something I'm still learning, a great stage manager knows how to flip their hat to go from the director component, which some stage managers do, giving notes, the stage manager part, and friend. Some of the stage managers, when I assist, that I get along the best with, we're also friends. It's not just our professional relationship, but that kind of enhances that. But knowing, it's developing that understanding that we're here for a purpose, but that purpose will also increase your friendship. And being able to just have that understanding that professionals first, if it becomes a friendship, which it probably will, great. And all the better, still treat everyone equally. And if you are friends with someone outside of it, don't let that blend. You can still do it. You do have to be pretty even with most people.
Yeah.
But actually, most of my friends are from theater, and
yeah,
it's being able to flip that hat, which I'm still learning how to do.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, it just comes down to trusting each other. And you may not care for the person that you're working with, but you do have to trust that they're going to do their job. And for me, at least, the vast majority of the time, they have, and it's been perfectly fine. So we just have a working relationship. We're not friends necessarily, but we work together. And it's the same with the actors too. I trust that they're going to put on the show they're supposed to put on. And again, if they stray too far, you reel them back. nicely,
I
like
mean, I have, yeah.
them or anything like that. It's just like, hey, let's take it down a degree or two. And especially when the director and or creative is in the house that night, give them that fair warning.
I mean, I have a couple examples that, I mean, I actually, they're a very good friend of mine for a long time and only worked together, but they tried to get out of coming to like a load in early that they were my production assistant for. And they're like, well, can I just skip it to do my laundry? And like, they were playing the friend card. Like, and I was like, no, you can't skip load in to do your laundry. You're an adult. You're going to figure out like everyone else when to do your laundry or drop it off. They were having like an issue with like dropping off their laundry. I'm not going to get into the reason why. It was weird. And they were like pissed for a minute because they knew I knew they were playing the friend card. And they got over it because we're still very close, good friends who work together. But, you know, it's just a balance. Don't do that. Don't take advantage of the friend card. It's the same if you're dating someone. I haven't never dated someone I've worked on a long running show with, mostly because I avoid that because you don't know when the contract's going to end and just the kind of that situation. But if I've ever worked on a show with someone I'm dating as like just a brief project, if people know we're dating, nothing happens during rehearsal, nothing happens during tech performance. We keep it professional and we go on our way and we don't talk about it. It's just because we also don't want people uncomfortable and we don't want to lie to people either. But it just makes for a better environment. And if you are dating someone or close with someone, people can know. Just be professional about it.
Oh, an industry of relationships. Yay, freelance.
All different kinds of relationships.
I think we might be getting close to time here.
Just about, yeah. Got about 10 minutes.
10? Yeah? 2?
Yeah, I'm counting down to, yeah.
Math.
Anyone besides Dion have a question?
But in reference to your last comment, Dion, working with multiple SMs that have no niceness towards the performer, you be the one who is then, because they're human too. They're not, you know, they're not paid monkeys. They're human.
I think in relation to that, there's something that a mentor told me, because I assisted him. You don't just want to be good. You want to be someone that they need to have in the room, which being pleasant, showing compassion, and just adding your own flair to the room just makes it so that you'll be their first choice, which is the goal. And of course, people think stage managers are interchangeable. We have different personalities. We have different sparks. So I think, and niceness probably for most people is what leads them into the room. Not saying there aren't some very on top of it talented SMs that maybe aren't the most warm and fuzzy, but they still work. But at least in my perspective, niceness and leads to a longer career.
I've got,
Yeah.
I mean, the talk show I ran for, a few years, we had different guests all the time from all different parts of the world, different backgrounds, and a few of them would come off stage and give me a big hug because they were so nervous before they went on, and I'd give them a little pep talk and be gentle and guide them and be like, oh, you got this, you're going to be amazing. And I remember one scientist, because it wasn't, unlike an actor, it wasn't really her thing to go on stage and talk about what she does, and she ran off and gave me the biggest hug and was like, you made me feel so comfortable and confident, and I could not have done it without you. And that's a reward in itself when someone does that. And that's happened on many of my projects, not just that talk show, but it feels so good, nice when people are like, thank you for making me feel comfortable while being professional.
Yeah, and I think that's it's definitely a different situation when you're dealing with somebody who this is not their job. public speaking is not their thing necessarily. And usually I think it's not necessarily a play that you're putting on with them, but it is some sort of public speaking event. Just let them know they're going to be okay. If they mess up, that's okay. Like, just go back. You can talk again. It is, it's not going to end the world or anything.
Ooh, I have a fun question. I'm gonna jump straight to Morgan's. What do you feel is your personal superpowers in SM?
Oh, that's a Valerie asked at the symposium.
I would like that to be an interview question, not do you prefer plays or musicals? Sorry, I hate that.
I hate that question too. Who's paying you more money? That's where I want to go. I don't care if it's a musical or a play.
I think mine would be just being calm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think mine is being able to deal with the situations that come up, because there are some interesting ones that you get yourself into somehow.
Also, my favorite part, jumping to Sadie's favorite part, is stage managing. I would say making the paperwork, but then I get fed up with the paperwork. The little interactions backstage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said, Ingrid, I prefer ASMing too, and I love being on deck. And that's what I like about short runs also, is I like being there from beginning to end.
I guess my SM superpower is just being flexible in the moment and just willing to do what I have to do, which is a part of problem solving. I guess my favorite part of stage managing is it's very specific. I love readings. I mean, some people are like hate readings, but I love them because you're working on a new work, different people, sometimes you've never met, sometimes familiar people, but you're just looking at the script and just seeing how people work within, usually it's 29-hour readings or something, and their intellect comes out and it's much stronger, and seeing them, how they play with the script and each other around the table. I really enjoy that part of stage managing.
So, Lisa?
I'm going to say my stage manager superpower is unabashedly my Southern charm, and I'm not afraid to use it. And I don't shy away from that. Yeah, I live in New York, but I was born and raised in the South and spent most of my life there. And so if I need to smile and ask nicely for something, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to make sure it works for me. So I think that's my superpower. My favorite thing about stage managing, and it kind of piggybacks on Lizzie's with reading. I love new work. I love being in the room and the creative process and watching how the show shifts and changes as the actors and the production team talk about the story and what's important in the story and how we get to the end part of that process. What have we picked out that we feel is important to tell an audience about that story? I love the juices, the creative juices in the room. That's my favorite thing.
Okay.
Would I be Dion had an interesting question.
We should probably make this one the last one.
This is going to be the last. Would we be prepared to step in and go on stage if there was no one else? There's a lot involved in that.
Yeah, it's not as simple as make it.
Because Lizzie, I think Ingrid, Lisa, and myself are equity stage managers. So there's a little bit, there's more involved in that for us specifically.
I mean, technically, ASMs can do so in
it's the same contract.
An emergency, yeah.
We can. And I think, the most I've had to do was go on during an understudy rehearsal for people, and step in during a rehearsal process if a scene partner is not there for something.
Usually that doesn't really happen. I mean, it can, where you're on an equity contract and the ASM can go on if the understudy or standby or principal isn't there, but they would probably cancel the show, to be honest, if it really came down to those people really not being there.
I mean, I've stepped in a rehearsal. If an actor is going to be gone, I did a show a couple years ago where we knew up front that an actor was going to be gone for 3 days for a commercial shoot. And as we got into the process, the director just said to me, I just don't want to come. You are the one that does this, even though I was ESM. So I got to be a really cool DJ for a day, for 3 days. I don't feel terribly comfortable doing that. I did start out as an actor, but have that background, but I chose stage management for a reason.
Yeah.
So that I don't have to be on stage.
I mean, I did do an out-of-town tryout. I did do an out-of-town, sorry? Oh, sorry, Lisa, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
But no. I was going to say, I did an there's a Zoom delay. Ugh. Anyway, I did an out-of-town tryout in Boston a few years ago where they actually wrote me in as the stage manager into the play, which it wasn't union. I'm not union, so I was comfortable with it. It was just the actor breaks scene and he's having a meltdown, and the stage manager goes, "Oh, can we continue?" And they like wrote lines for me, but I was fine with it because I didn't have to be seen. Like people could hear me and walking around, and I wore like these big boots, so they actually sounded like I was being aggressive. But it didn't bother me, and I was perfectly happy, and it was kind of fun actually to be able to do it.
Sorry, go ahead, Ingrid.
Taking away unions, unless it was a dire emergency. I've done it once as a over-God mic for a touring show. Oh, I messed up like crazy. I started as an actor. There's a reason I'm behind the scenes now. I turn it away every time. I had a director over the summer who knew when they suggested that the stage crew, which were the ASMs, were going to be doing scene shifts, that she was looking over at me because she knew how that was going to go on in costume.
I mean, if you guys go to my Facebook page, my own Taylor I posted just the other day a blooper reel of when I was a news anchor in college. And I'm actually not the bulk of that blooper reel, but I'm on there, and I think I captioned it. There's a reason why I'm backstage, why I'm behind the scenes.
It was cute. I saw it.
Yeah. I was like way more blonde than I thought I would. Yeah. Anyway. But taking away unions, and if if that's what it takes to get the show to go, sure, but it's going to be book in hand, and it'll be some sort of modified show.
I had to wear a white medical coat for a couple scene changes on a play at the Wild Project, actually, Lisa, several years ago, and it made no sense to see me and a bunch of professional actors doing these scene changes in white medical coats, but that's what they wanted, so we just did it.
There was and like I said, last summer I did a show where I was the ASM for the show, but I was also a camera person at the top of the show. So it was written in for me, and it was written into my contract, so I got the pay bump.
But yeah, emergencies, they're their own beasts. So who knows what will happen in the future.
Phantom of the Opera, their stagehands, you see them on stage, like their actual stagehands on Broadway have costumes, and they're playing the stagehands in the show.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
But yeah, in emergency, you do, I guess.
And we'll find out what happens in the future once we come back from all this. But yeah, that's, I think, our time, you guys. Our crew also does costumes. Yeah, elf hats.
Oh yeah. What Ingrid is referring to, Miracle on 34th Street, our intermission shift was done. I had to do part of the shift, and we were in elf hats because they didn't give us actual Macy's uniforms.
Oh wow.
I said too. But yeah, I think that's our time. It actually says we need to take a break now, guys. So I I think we're gonna call it there, and then we'll announce what our next topic is. It's so we have the stage management symposium this coming weekend. So our next little meetup is not going to be on Monday. It'll be on a Tuesday instead, because we just need a break in between there. Because a couple of us are going to be on our computers moderating throughout the entire weekend for quite a few hours. So, but we'll keep you guys posted on our Facebook page and Instagram and such. And again, if you feel it in your hearts to donate anything to us, we would appreciate it. The link is at the top of this chat. And it's okay if you can't also, we understand. But thank you guys thanks for coming.
Talk to y'all later.
Bye.
Thank you.